before we start. Lewis, it's been nearly a year since we've had you on. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And looking forward to spending some time with you, Joe. Been following your podcast since the last year. And I must say, I think you do a great job of bringing different people in and, looking at the energy sector right across the board. Good for you.
Oh, thank you for that, Lewis. What's been going on the last year or so? Keeping busy?
Well, we've really been busy, actually. First of all, we've been working with a lot of new clients. Thanks to Mark Wilkinson, who, we've got toiling away in the UK and bringing clients to us there. Also, Abby Taylor, who has a company called P2VS, which is really brings speakers in and people talking about safety and leadership to different companies. So we're certainly getting exposed to different companies than we were before. We're building a really strong group of E Colours practitioners around the world, and that's becoming more and more prevalent every day. So they're literally taking our technology and using it under license in their own business. I must admit, in the last year, I've had a kind of renewed belief in what we bring to the world actually matters. I'm seeing it every day. I mean, literally, I've been on calls this morning since 5 o'clock this morning with people around the world, and just to see how people are really understanding the benefits of understanding themselves and others is really, really powerful. We've also had a situation which I'm sure won't come as a surprise to you, but a lot of people who used to work for one of our anchor clients, as organizations in oil and gas have, gone through transformations and renewal and all the rest of it. A lot of people have left knowing our stuff very well, have now gone into other companies. And of course, hey, can you come along and bring it to our new company? And that's been really interesting, particularly, having worked with an oil company for a long time. A lot of the people have now gone into different energy sectors, be it wind, electricity, or whatever. And so it's really helping us spread our technology, Joe. On top of that, we've built a new leadership program, which I'm really proud of. It's something that I think is going to be very useful for a lot of people. We have a new book coming out called the E Colours Playbook, which will be out in a couple of weeks, all being well. And actually, I was working it out this morning. In the last few months, I have written the forewords to 6 people's books, including Shane Gorman, actually. I don't know if you've read Through the Flames yet. I think you're going to get him on his podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm going to try. I'm still trying to get him, actually.
Yeah, really, really good book, actually. And, his dad was never found after Piper Alpha, unfortunately, blew up. So that's been really nice. And one of the reasons I really appreciate the fact that people are asking me to write forwards, I was thinking back, if I go back 25 years ago, in Aberdeen, particularly, they used to call what we do today Lewis's warm and fuzzy stuff. So we've come a long way.
Why do you think people have taken maybe a different approach to it then? And why do you think there is more kind of want and interest around it?
I think a lot of it is from the practical applications. I think 2 or 3 things, actually. One is, I think COVID actually had quite a lot to do with people having more time to become self-aware, when they were probably looking at things they'd never thought of before and finding their own way of resilience, etc. I think that had something to do with it. And also the fact that in these days, how are you going to get on with other people? How are you going to get on in life if you can't communicate effectively? That's top and bottom of it. And actually, if you're asking about what's happened in the last year, I had my entire set of bottom teeth taken out on March the 4th. As you can probably see, I'm got the pins in here and I'm waiting for the new teeth. So in 2 weeks, I'll be able to eat an apple, which I've not done in months. So you can imagine I'm quite excited, actually.
Been on a soup diet for a wee while then, haven't you?
Soup and ice cream, pretty cool. No, it's been great. It's been really, really good.
Guys, I'm sorry to interrupt this show and I really hope you're enjoying it. One thing I'm going to ask you, if you're listening to it and you're not liking, following or subscribing to it, could I ask a massive favour that you do? It really helps the show, it helps me bring in more people and it helps me get more stories out there, which in favour brings more stories back in. Let's get back to it. But 75, Lewis, how do you keep going what keeps getting you up in the morning? Because by now you should have retired a good while ago.
Well, it's really interesting you say that. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they asked me exactly the same question. And before I could answer, they said, "Lewis, I know the answer." I said, "What's that?" He says, "Purpose never retires."
It's a good one.
And it's a really nice way to think about it. So, I mean, I love what we do. You know, our vision, as you well know, Joe, is in Equilibria, is realizing potential. Our vision, our core value is people first. And as long as there's people who are willing to go along with us and, take this journey of understanding themselves and others to the extent that they do, then I'm going to keep going. And then I have to say, I'm really blessed. As long as I've got my health, and I have a family around me that really supports, what I do, then I'm going to keep going probably to the day I kick the bucket. That's the reality.
No time for golf then, no.
I've even given up on golf actually. It's right now. I'm in Spain, as you know. It's just way too hot, frankly. But the last few months, it's been really nice. Just a lot of people have suddenly, for whatever reason, they've got past whatever they were going through in their own business. And they're now looking for the kind of help that we can give them, and it's really becoming a real delight again. Actually, it's never been a slog, but it's fun right now in helping people achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah, do you think Equilibria has more of a place, kind of, especially now in the UK? Have you found yourselves being a bit more busy with people kind of maybe being a bit more concerned about how the outlook is of the oil and gas industry, so to speak?
Well, we by choice, and because, as you well know, I started in the oil field back in the mid-70s, which reminds me, I need to thank you, because thanks to one of your podcasts, I got to talk to James Regan of Driller Shack, and we had a lot of memories to share, which I had forgotten many, many years ago. But in terms of the UK and what's going on there, I feel almost, it may sound crazy, but feel almost obliged that I know what we do today when we talk about, our personality diversity technology and the impact it has on safety, reliability, operational excellence. Actually, I want to make sure that we're in the game, because there's still people getting out there with the potential to get hurt, maimed and killed. And so I don't know where we were at last time you and I talked, but we joined Step Change in Safety. We're part of a leadership program that they run. And let me just say, on the 26th of August, we're actually doing a 1-hour webinar around lifting, safe working at heights and drops relative to personality. We have a 2-day leader course, of which we're part of at the Ardo House, on the 15th and 16th of September, which we share with 3 other companies, all part of Step Change. And then, Joe, on the 29th of October, we have a really great event going on at the P&J. They're in Aberdeen. They are bringing around 300 to 400 people in, safety reps, site managers, and senior leaders of organizations. The morning will actually be a breakfast forum by some really interesting people, including some of the oil companies. Shane Gorman will then talk about his book. And have you ever seen his presentation about the wall?
No, I haven't actually. No.
Okay, you will at some point. And then basically we've got the afternoon, and really, really looking forward to that, because if those are, a lot of those people are either out there trying to help people keep themselves in one piece, or they're the leadership in town who need to support the people that need to stay in one piece and get back to their families. So I'm really looking forward to that. So as long as there's people working in the energy business and can use our help, we're going to be there, Joe.
Anything else significant to tell us, Lewis?
The list goes on, but we do have a major announcement, which you may have heard a little bit about.
Well, no, I haven't heard anything yet. I've been trying to get out of your life, but
on the 15th of September, I think we're going to be making an announcement, which for anybody involved in HSE is going to be really, really, I think, not only exciting, but will make a big difference in their lives. And really looking forward to when that happens. It's another part of what we do, is this continual desire to help people. And I think we've found a very good way to do it. I do have a couple more announcements if you don't mind. We've got a family day coming up in London on the 19th of September, which, you know, we're inviting people to bring their families along to a really a great e-color session for anybody who's that. We've just formed another collaboration with a company called The Zone out of New Zealand, which is, and again, going to be helping people around the world. And then there's a Fisher Improvement Technology Conference, of which we are partners, where we marry the science of human and organizational performance and the e-colors together. They have a conference in November. If anybody wants to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, then I can highly recommend that. Other than that, it's just another day in the oil field, Joe.
Nothing else, no.
So what are you going to hear today, Joe?
What do you think needs to happen to look back at the end of this year and call it successful?
You know, I was thinking about that. Well, the number one thing for me, it will be a success if I wake up. You know, that's always something that is on my mind. Had a couple of stents put in last year, so you know, being able to do what we do is certainly what I would consider to be a success. And actually, you know what? One of the things that I'm really looking forward to, Joe, and I don't mind saying this on your podcast, is that you have found your purpose and how that plays out in your life. Because I think, you know, what you've done, when did you start the actual podcast?
I think it was April last year.
April last year. Well,
yeah.
Just imagine the amount of people that you've already positively impacted, and I'm sure you're going to do a lot more of it in the future. So that's definitely on my bucket list, is to see you be successful.
Oh, thanks, Lewis. That's nice to hear that.
And I, you know, you and I have had conversations that I'm going to do everything I can to help you along that journey as long as you want, because I think the fact that I'll tell you something which I really like is the way that you do things is you keep an open mind regardless of what it is that people come to talk about. You know, there are other podcasts that I can't stand to listen to because they're so biased to one thing or another.
Yeah.
You know, so
no, it's funny actually. I was speaking to a lady the other day who's a bit similar to me. She's quite open minded in that regard, and not got the intention just to go out and shut people down. But obviously I had Tessa Khan on the show, and I got obviously a little bit of I got a few messages and whatnot, you know, that people weren't best impressed with me not, you know, drilling her and whatnot. And the thing is like at the end of the day, like I've spoken to Tessa off air as well as on air, and she I think it's important to realize that both of us have the same kind of wants. We both want cheap energy. We both want obviously the economy to thrive off it. We want more jobs, blah blah blah. It's just we're aligned in different ways of how the approach should be to get to it, and that's all it is. At the end of the day, we still want the same things. It's just maybe her views on how we get to it is different to my views on how it doesn't mean necessarily either one of us is right or either one of us is wrong. But if I just brought her on and started, you know, nailing into her, like one, probably she's actually a very good speaker, so she'd probably, you know, go to town on us anyway. But two, I don't think you're going to achieve anything, because I think nowadays, I think we're all old enough and wise enough to know that just because someone says something doesn't necessarily mean you have to align or believe it. And I think, you know, it's still important to get someone on, listen to what their views were. And I said to her at the end, and I've said to her, you know, I don't fully agree with them. Some we do, so, you know, but, you know, a lot we don't. But then that doesn't mean, like, I look at her in any different way in terms of, oh, she's this, she doesn't believe in that, dude. Like, she's still a human being. She's still got her views, and she's totally entitled to them. I think it's important nowadays that people realize you can't allow the emotion to get the better of you and start, you know, getting stuck into people just because they don't see the same way that you do.
Exactly. And the thing is, well, again, I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the more you hear other people talk, you begin to realize this. It's so emotionally charged as well. You know, I had a funny experience a few weeks ago. In fact, I think you'd also done some work there, but I ran a session for the entire team of the Sophia wind farm.
Yeah.
And I started the presentation showing them a picture of Don Quixote charging at a windmill, and I made the mistake of calling the wind farm windmill.
Oh no!
talk,
You don't do that.
talk about getting an eye roll.
Yeah, that's a big no.
No, I got that message super clear. But I think what was
Yeah.
interesting, if I look back, to my career, imagine how people would have felt about wind in the 70s, when the oil kind of booming and the 80s. And now it's becoming, as mind shifts change, as politics change, as the world change, you just got to, as you say, people have got different opinions and there are no right and wrong answers. That's the reality. The challenge that we all have is the world is so volatile. I honestly wonder sometimes if, the world isn't just a little bit mad because we accept things that are just beyond belief to a degree. My only thought for me is if I can't do something directly about it, I choose not to have an opinion.
Yeah, that's probably a good way. Or like I said to a few people actually, mate, if you don't like it, just scroll on. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not hard. If that's like you're not going to have any impact. Let's be totally honest. People like ourselves are not going to have enough impact on the changing of the world order by putting a post up saying that we don't agree with it. Just that's not how it works. Because let's be totally honest, the people that have control of these things are not going to be looking at your comment or anything like that.
Correct. 100% agree.
One of the things you said the last time actually was I think it was last time or one of our conversations was leaders set the culture. What do you think the clearest sign is that a leader is creating the right one?
So, I over the years, I've spent a lot of time working on leaders, with leaders, trying to develop things for leaders. And I remember leading or running a session actually in the Gulf of Mexico one time. Majority of the crew were from Jackson, Mississippi, a guy I've known for years actually. And he said, Lewis, how long are we going to talk about leadership? And I said, well, it's something that we all need to get our heads around. If you're a young crane operator, first leadership job all the way through life, right? He said, can I give you a definition of leadership? I said, of course. He says, well, if you think you're a leader and you look behind you and there ain't no one there, then you ain't no leader. And actually, it's true. And so when I was thinking about the podcast we're going to have today, I have over the years realized that obviously leadership comes in all shapes and forms, right? For somebody who spent a lot of time working on rigs and then in Equilibria going out to a lot of rigs, and I'm sure it's the same for you, you can pick up on the atmosphere within nanoseconds of arriving on board, what the culture's like, what the leadership's like, etc. If a company says to me, in an area where we're working with schools, which we do a lot, can you take us into an organization where we can watch leadership at work? I will take them to a school and introduce them to the head teacher, because the leadership qualities of a head teacher in a school are no different to an OIM or an operations manager or a company manager or a country manager for that matter, in the oil business. Why? Because nobody comes along with good news most of the time. I always remember my days, people used to say to me, what's it like being an OIM? And I said, well, just this morning, I've had 2 people complaining about the food. We've got a leak on one of our pumps downstairs. We've run out of toilet paper and we haven't got to TD. I mean, and that's life as a leader on an oil rig, basically, right? Yeah. So at the end of the day, how you manage people, how you realize, Ed Morrow, who used to be my boss when I worked for Transocean Sonat, actually, back in the day, passed away a long time ago. When I became an OIM, he said, Lewis, your job now is 95% people. And my comment was, can it not be 100% people? He said, no, you've still got equipment out there you need to think about. But at the end of the day, leaders need to be ambitious for their people, not for themselves, for their people. And those are the leaders that you want to be around, is people who are looking way beyond their own success, but actually for the success of others. You tell me, Joe, I mean, you go to a lot more installations than I do these days. Do you see that?
I think I think it depends really on a few things. Like I went on a drilling rig that it's actually on years ago, actually. 7 years ago or something like that. I went back on it actually just recently. And we'll put it this way, the vessel I'd been on prior to that, there was a lot more of a camaraderie on it than there was on this drilling rig. Now, I don't know obviously leadership takes a huge part of it, but the strange thing is that both the tool pusher and the OEM were both really decent lads. Couldn't complain about them at all. I thought the crew right down to the drillers, to the roughnecks, they're all, really decent lads. But there wasn't like it wasn't like the animosity between them or anything like that. But there wasn't that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the kind of community kind of feel. That's probably what I'm after. Yeah, that kind of community feel when you're on there. However, the vessel I'd been on for a good while before that, you felt it. Like in the galley, you knew it was there. In the locker room, there was banter. In the T-shirt, even the toolbox talks were a lot easier to do, because everyone had that kind of community feel. So I think it's something I've realized a bit recently is you can still have really good camaraderie between each other. You can get on work wise, but you still want that kind of personal touch, which I felt was missing when I was on that rig in comparison to the vessel. And the other vessel I was just on, over in Taiwan there as well. I'd been on there a few years back. They've got it. You feel it in the galley. You feel it, out on deck. They're having a bit of banter and stuff like that with each other. And that's the kind of atmosphere you want to be around. Not to say that what's going on in the drilling rig is wrong. I think there's maybe a few things that maybe align to that. Ultimately, when I was on the vessels in renewables, there's a lot less worry about jobs, etc., because these vessels had jobs lined up for years. Whereas the rig I was on, they were on contract by contract basis, well by well basis. So obviously that maybe there's potentially that's underlying in that factor that maybe changes the dynamics a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I found but I think ultimately when it comes to good leaders, some of the ones I've come across, you just know straight away. There's no worry about so and so is coming down or this, that, and the other. It's they speak to each other like you would speak to anyone, which I think is always a big thing. You can always tell straight away when people change totally when someone of stature comes down. You know straight away. All right, okay, right. They're not. It's not that kind of place. Then I think that's the biggest thing. The person changes immediately, and you even say to them after, "Why have you talked like that?" Oh no, I don't know what you're on about. But fine well that it's because there's an ounce of fear. I don't think you should be fearing of your leader.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of it, it's difficult, and I for sure. You're obviously going to have a different atmosphere on a rig or a platform or whatever where they got long term. I find it really interesting, actually. We did the decommissioning, a lot of work in the decommissioning world over in California. Actually, there were 2 platforms over there. And there were people on board who were literally about to dismantle their home. They'd started on there 40 odd years ago, some of them, and now they were going to be taking it away. And it was interesting to see, actually, with them, it was twofold. That the sadness about the fact they were going to be losing their jobs, although a lot of them were ready to retire. The ones who could have retired decided to stay until it was done because they thought they needed to be part of the actual decommissioning to make sure everything went right. It was very interesting to see the dynamic. But I'll tell you what, we went out there and did what we did, and everybody told us it made a huge difference because, you've got a lot of different contractors in a decommissioning process, for example, who aren't used to working with each other, as opposed to a drilling rig where typically, you've got the same service companies for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So it's always an interesting dynamic for sure.
For someone hearing about E-Colours now for the first time, what's probably the simplest way to explain why personality will affect their safety?
I think it's very simple, actually. People of different personalities see and risk, or they see and manage risk differently. And that's really the key of it all. So once you understand, the very first question that we asked many, many years ago was, how could you get hurt relative to your personality? And what surprised me very quickly is how they knew exactly how they could get hurt. In fact, the webinar that we're doing on the 26th of August, as I say, it's going to be around lifting, working at heights and drops. I'm going to give 3 examples, which included a fatality, a life-changing injury, and an injury, and a rig shutting down for several days because we stopped the job. And all of that was around personality. Those people would still be in much better shape today had they understood their personality and how that plays out when they're working.
Do you think it makes it easier for certain type of people to stop the job?
Very much so.
Being more difficult for another?
Oh, absolutely. And I did not know that. This is, there's not much point in regretting things that you didn't do, because unless you can do something about it. But I spent several years as an OIM. They sent me to everywhere we had problems in the world. They would send me because they knew that I could basically, as I say, terrible about the equipment, but pretty good with the people. And the amount of times I've stood in pre-tower meetings, pre-task meetings, regardless of how serious the task was going to be, and told everybody, if you have a problem, just shut it down. If you're not sure, stop the job. As a yellow-red, which are my E-Colours, I had no problem with that and never even realized other people had a problem with it. It never even occurred to me until we started Equilibria. And when actually 2008, 2009, we were working with Chevron. They had a massive drive to get people to exercise stop work authority, to stop the job. You're accountable, you're responsible, and all the rest of it. And guess what? Some people were doing it really well, and some people you could see had no intention of doing it. Yeah. So we started to ask the question in our workshops and online, what makes it difficult to stop the job? And it became very clear very quickly when at the same time we started working in schools, and I would sit with kids who were predominantly blue-green, so deep thinkers, very quiet, don't like confrontation, which is probably quite a lot of the workforce, 8-year-olds, and I'm watching them, and they never put the hand up in class, ever, until we taught them the E-Colours and gave them a pause and play wristband. They press the play button, up goes the hand. Fast forward that kid at 8 years old, one of whom is now working for Chevron, he's got through every transformation, every layoff that's gone on. He's still there as an engineer. And guess what? He's doing really well. No problem raising his hand. Why? Because he got to understand himself and what makes him tick and what makes it difficult for him to stop the job. So do I believe certain personalities have a challenge with it? Absolutely. Go to Heathrow Airport, get off the plane, and the first thing you hear, if you see something, say something. You get on the train, if you see something, say something. They have see something, say something, sort it. I heard it several times on the train the other day. Do you really think people say anything? No. So you've got to give them a mechanism for being able to do it. And that's what we see when we introduce our stuff.
What do you think companies are usually misunderstanding though when they first try to introduce the human performance, so to speak?
I think the biggest misunderstanding is they take elements of what is a very interesting process, and most companies, particularly the large ones, think they can do better internally than actually really bringing somebody in to teach them how it's supposed to work. And they run with that. And then their internal cell isn't very good. and they never actually get the full advantage. So if you go to a lot of companies today and say, are you using human organizational performance? They go, oh yeah, we're doing learning teams. Well, learning teams is a part of a much larger picture, if you like, but they never actually look at the rest of it. And so to my mind, it's a big, big miss. I thought when we started the E Colours, we were doing human performance until I met a guy called Rob Fisher, who owns Fisher IT, actually at the request of the client in Bakersfield. And I realized what they're talking about and what we're talking about are two completely different things. But if you marry it together, it is powerful, Joe. And that's what we did. And that's, we formed Aero and working like a dream. But you've got to see the whole picture. You've got to understand a lot of what's behind it.
Going off subject a little bit, is like obviously the industry now, oil and gas, wind and whatnot. Do you think it's lost some of the pride and the sense of community it once had?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, but and you know better than I do all the reasons. It's somebody was asking me the other day about what's one of the best operations you've ever seen, and I will tell you. When I look back at all the people we've worked with over the years, I'll give you a great example. Second wave of dual activity drill ships that Transocean built was Discoverer Clear Leader, and then was the Inspiration. And I knew the manager. He just retired from Transocean last year. I've known him since he was coming off the rigs, going into town. I've worked with him for years, a guy called Keith Miller. And I said to Keith, are you going to be involved with the Inspiration? He said, yeah, I'm going to be the manager of the Inspiration. And the rig was going to work for Chevron. So I also knew the guy who, Mike French, who was the person from Chevron who was going to be running the operation. As a matter of fact, Mike French was in Nigeria when we started Equilibria. So I went to see them. I said, do you want to do something really special? The rig's called the Inspiration. So why not do something inspirational? I'm giving this an example, right? So we started off, in fact, myself and one of the other coaches, we went over to Korea like every other month as they were building the thing. And we got to know the people. We integrated right from the beginning. When the rig came, or when the ship was coming over to Korea, we did, think about, could this happen today, to answer your question? We did a 4-day workshop in Texas. All of the crew, all of the business partners, the service partners invited, and their families, 4 days. On the 3rd day, they did drilling a well on paper, right? So they went off and did the technical stuff. We got the wives and the children and ran an E Colours session for them. So they understood at least what their husbands or brothers or uncles or auntie, whatever it was working on the rig, got. On the last afternoon of those 4 days, everybody was at flip charts by department, making the commitment about what they're going to do for the Inspiration to be successful, including the families were at a flip chart talking about what they were going to do at home so their spouse, brother, sister, whatever it was on the rig, didn't have to worry about. You get the idea?
Yeah, it's an interesting.
Could you see that happening today, Joe?
No.
No. There's your answer right there.
No.
And by the way, that ship did, that rig did amazing things for a long, long time. So it takes investment. It's a very special industry that, we work in, and it takes just that little bit extra to take people to that next level. And I'm really hoping that's what we can get across to some of the leaders at this step change meeting on the 29th of October. They have to understand the impact of their actions as the senior leaders.
Yeah, I think what I worry about a little bit is, and I just released a podcast with Stevie Beattie, obviously, but I was speaking to him not long after. When I was on a rig recently, there was a company out there, I won't mention any names and whatnot, But they were out there doing this kind of human intervention kind of thing, should we say? And my worry is now is that people are taking advantage of this being an opportunity to not profiteer from, but to obviously set up a business in. And the thing that caught me the most was the rig is multicultural, so there was all kinds of nationalities on there. And the boy kind of says to us, he says, "Oh, there's not many Brits on here, is there?" And I was like, "Well, no, but that's kind of the case for quite a lot of rigs nowadays, anyway." And because I was saying to him, "Oh, I was speaking to him about what does he do, blah, blah. He'd not been offshore for very long, and they were doing this kind of welfare thing where they come over, they speak to you and whatnot." And I just thought, nah, that's not the way to be going about it. Like, I don't think that kind of approach works, where you bring off some guy from offshore who's not relatable in that fact, because he's not really from an offshore background. But they brought this person off, and I'm sure he's brilliant at what he does, maybe in a different kind of sector and whatnot, but he didn't know where to be, because I spoke to him a bit about it as well. He was like, "Oh, I don't really know where to kind of be, because obviously we're operational and this, that, and the other. I don't want to be in the wrong place and this, that, and whatnot." And, you would see him at tea break, lunch, and then tea break again. And I was like, but then that's probably not what you want, really, as someone who works offshore. You want someone who one's relatable, you can speak to and you can bounce off, because you've done the same thing, you've been in the same kind of atmosphere and whatnot before. And two, just coming out at tea breaks and lunches is by far the wrong thing to do, because at that point, as an individual, if you're a guy who's been doing whatever you've been doing for the few hours in between, the last thing you're wanting to do is have some guy come over to you and start speaking to you about how you feel, how you're doing and whatnot. Like, especially, you're just wanting a cup of coffee and you want to have a chat, with your mucker and whatnot, and have a laugh. And I just felt the approach was wrong. That's my only worry about how the kind of, the human performance thing's going to go, is that people are going to see there's an opportunity there and going to jump on it without actually the interest of actually the actual individuals offshore being taken to heart.
All I can say is, when we talk about human organizational performance, what we call AERO, which is Advanced Error Reduction Organizations, it's based on, between the two companies, it's probably based on the best part of 100 years of experience.
Which helps.
But Joe, sorry, I just realised something here. We've been going for 45 minutes, and I really want to do something that I think we all owe you, if you don't mind. I want to take over the podcast. Is that okay?
All right, go on then.
and Joe, the reason I want to do this is I have so much admiration for what you've done and what you're doing, and I think a lot of people collectively, we probably need to learn a little bit about things from your side, if you don't mind. So, first of all, why did you actually start the podcast, Wind, Waves and Wells? What was the first thing that went through your head when you decided to do this?
I've actually been asked this quite a few times. I was asked it once actually on the podcast as well. Mark Lappin asked us it. But the first time it actually really came to heart was I was in Taiwan on the ship coming into Kaohsiung port, which I don't know if you know much about. It's a big port, and there is a lot going on there. And I kind of, when I was kind of stood up there looking at it, I was thinking to myself, fucking hell, there is so much that goes on in this world at sea or whatnot that none of us really know about. And people in the office who probably, have worked in this industry for years, never ever really got a look in at what goes on. Maybe they step foot on a do a token gesture visit onto a vessel or whatnot, and this or a rig, so to speak. But I just feel there's so much that goes on in this world that no one really knows, and it's so important to people's lives. I remember my dad growing up used to always say, "Joe, pretty much every single thing in this house has some form of oil and gas derivative," and it's right enough. Pretty much everything in the houses still these days have got some form of oil and gas derivatives, and we're so dependent on that. And then the energy side of things, obviously now, and I just felt there's a lot of stories out there, and some people might sit on have people that are admired, like celebrities and stuff like that. That my kind of admire people that do pretty incredible things in this industry. To be honest with you.
Excellent. So where do you see yourself in the future? Is it offshore? Is it HSE? Is it continuing with the podcast? Is it a mixture of all three?
Pretty much. I'm trying to step back a bit. I'm trying to find a way to step back a bit. Sorry, from offshore. I'm getting up to like 15 years now. I remember when I first went into it, my plan was it was always to go back to the Middle East actually, but that never happened. My plan was always to kind of do 5 years offshore and then kind of try and make a way into the office. But that's me approaching nearly 15, and yeah, I'm still doing it. But I do love it. I love going away and stuff. I do love the going away stuff. I just feel I'm missing maybe a bit too much at home now. I've not really ever had rotations, so obviously averaging over 180 odd days a year, sometimes 200. But yeah, I think it's just that point now in my career where I think I want progression more than anything as well. But so I have done, obviously I've done quite a lot of qualifications to go down the HSE route, because I feel like that's probably one avenue I maybe could reflect on. I've seen a few things that I'm not that impressed with the way it's been taken nowadays. And I guess that I'll keep doing the podcast. I enjoy it. I think it's easy to do, and I can speak shite for hours anyway, so it's not hard.
So I wouldn't put that on your CV if I were you. But
I won't leave that one off.
But I do actually. I want to just pick up on the HSE, because I was really thinking about this when I knew we were going to be talking. And I listened to another podcast while I was out walking this morning where they were talking about AI as normal, right? If you think about it, HSE professionals who in the past have spent the majority of their time writing procedures or even reviewing procedures, etc., they are not going to have much of a life in the future, because an AI system can already write a procedure. It can write a procedure taking out all the error traps and everything else that gets people in trouble if it's not written correctly.
Yeah.
So where does that leave an HSE person today? And in my mind, this is why, Joe, if I were you, and I never tell people what to do, but if you think about it, you've got a really good opportunity to move into the HSE world. You've got operational experience, just like you said before. So you have street cred, right, which is so important, as you well know. Then you've got the background, you've got NEBOSH, you've got all the certification, the training. And on top of that, as you just said, I might change the words that you use, but you get on really well with people. and those are what else do you really need to be an HSE professional? Yes, you know what I mean? So
no, it's funny you say that actually, because let's be totally honest, and I don't care how many people are going to lie about it. Like, most paperwork eventually is going to be done by AI soon enough. Let's be like you can lie about it till you're blue in the face. Yes, okay, you'll probably still need you'll still need to proofread everything, but if you're not proofreading things anyway, then you're a bit silly, to be honest. But the ultimate job is going to be not policing, but doing as much coaching and being as a parent around the people offshore. Is it anyway? Sorry, lost my words there. So I think there is going to have to be the human factor, the human element, and I think it's like I've had a couple of interviews recently. Is you got to start building cultures again. Like, if the company I work for at the moment, well, I've been working for the last year or so, they've got a brilliant culture. Like, it works. Like, their culture is obviously that good that these guys will stay, do overtime, not put it down on their timesheet to get whatever job needs to be done over the line. That's a culture. That is a belt. You know what I mean? They don't have to. They can clock off at 6 or 7. They don't have to keep going. But some of them are. And that's obviously a culture that's been built for them. And that goes a long way this day and age, because your performance comes off the back of that massively as well.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be quite crucial, is trying to build a bit of camaraderie, a bit of community around people. Even if you look at oil and gas in the UK at the moment, where there is a lot of uncertainty around what's going to happen, with regards to a political situation. having said that, it's about getting the best out of each individual, even though and taking into consideration what their maybe their worries are in the background. I think that's going to be a big thing about HSE, to be honest.
So, Joe, 5 years' time, what's Joe Leather going to look like?
I could probably still be offshore, though, in my luck.
No.
I don't know. I've been nearly 40, so I'd like to think that I've not doing this still. I'd like to think by then, like I've kind of stepped away from offshore. I'd like to think. I've got 4 kids, so I think my missus is starting to really feel that she's. I think it's getting it. Obviously, it was always difficult from the get go, but obviously they're getting at those ages where they're a bit all over the shop, and I don't want them to miss too much, because ultimately we don't get that much help down here because we live away from our family and whatnot. So I don't want to be leaving her to try and fend all the time, but at the same time, I also don't. I think I'm at the point where I know that I don't want to be doing offshore for too much longer either. Not because I don't like it or anything like that, but I just think, I think I want some form of career progression now. And I still enjoy going away and stuff like that. I wouldn't want to be totally away from the field, because I still enjoy going away and whatnot. But yeah, maybe at home a bit more working than being away all the time, I think, is what I hope.
So if somebody is listening to this podcast now who thinks I could take Joe Leather and help him realize his potential, what would you say to them?
If you don't risk anything, you risk everything. That's it, isn't it? I think you've got to take a risk on some things in regards to, okay, yeah, maybe he's I don't know, what would I say? I don't know, actually. That would probably be, well, I'm not scared to put the graft in. I'm not scared to try new things. I've done loads of new things. I've done loads of things now in this industry, to be honest with you. I've experienced that, not by choice all the time, sometimes by choice, but by current climate and whatnot. I've been able to diversify, but yeah, I'm not shy of working, and I'm not shy of getting stuck in terms of making the most of a situation either.
Excellent. Well, from my side, I honestly wish you all well. And as I've told you many times before, you can count on us to help you any way we can. But I am sure, Joe, very, very sure that your future is going to be bright and you're going to impact a lot of people. And I just want to thank you on behalf of everybody who you've ever come in contact with, because I think you do a phenomenal job in helping people see through a lot of the challenges that are going on today.
No, thanks for that, Lewis. And thanks for coming back on again, actually. But just before you go off, what would you still love to achieve before you decide to, if you do decide to retire, or if not, kick the bucket, as you say?
What would I like to see? I'd like to see my teeth in. They'll be in 2 weeks. No, I'd like to continue to see what's happening now. As I say, I started the podcast. I see a kind of renewed wave of interest in using our technology from school children, university. I just spoke to 2 young ladies in Singapore this morning who were going through our practitioner program, 19 years old. Amazing how quickly they're getting it and understanding the system, all the way through to construction companies, military, you name it. And as long as, we've probably touched somewhere in the region, at least through our system, of about 1.75 million people. But there are nearly 8 billion people in the world, Joe, so we've still got a way to go.
Wow,
And, I'm going to spend my life doing what I can, and I'm sure it'll go way beyond me.
And fair play to you, Lewis, because, a lot of people at your age aren't, are probably on the golf course by now, or have been on the golf course for a while. So for the fact that you're still sticking in on it, shows a lot in terms of the individual you are. Because let's be totally honest, I'm sure you've been in an industry where you've done well enough, and you probably don't actually need to be doing this. But the fact that you still are does show a lot of your value in that regards.
I'm sure I'm not alone. There are lots of people who, as I said right at the beginning, if you know your purpose, or at least you think you know your purpose, and then you follow that, it's a logical thing is to keep doing it as long as you can do it, and that's what I intend to do.
But it is good.
And thank goodness I've got the support of the family, because you can't do this without the family behind you. That's for sure.
No, that's I think that's definitely the case with everything, isn't it? Really nowadays, especially when it comes to the work side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But no, thanks so much for coming on, Lewis. It's been great to speak to you again.
My pleasure, and again, much appreciated. And if anybody is around Aberdeen or in the energy business, let me just tell you again, this Step Change webinar on the 26th of August, very going to be interesting, just an hour. The 2-day leadership program that we share with 3 other companies in September, again through Step Change, I think is very valuable for leaders. And this thing we're doing at the P&J on the 29th of October, again with Step Change, I think that is a must for people to understand what their future could look like from a safety perspective.
And what about September? Still nothing on that, no?
Yes, there'll be an announcement in September, Joe. Hey, I got to go, actually. Thank you so much, Joe.
No,
much
thanks so much,
appreciated.